If you're hopping over from PlayStation country or just getting your first console, there are plenty of great games to play in the Xbox ecosystem. And sure, Microsoft hasn't been as good as Sony about getting those really killer exclusive titles, and that's something we knocked Microsoft for on the Xbox Series X review. Still, it's not as if there's nothing to play on Xbox. Microsoft has one thing that Sony doesn't, and that is Game Pass. Its subscription service with a rotating selection of great titles and all of Microsoft's first-party titles too. While some games may leave the service over time, the best thing about Game Pass is that all those first-party titles are there from the day they were released, and they'll be on the service for as long as it exists. And honestly, I just think that is a much better deal than spending $60 on a new game. That'll get you several months of Game Pass, either with Game Pass Ultimate, which is the all-in-one option that has Game Pass for PC and Xbox Live multiplayer. Alternatively, you could just get Game Pass on its own for $10 a month for either console or PC. Clearly, Game Pass is the big star for Microsoft, so here are a couple games that we recommend diving into. First up is the Halo Master Chief Collection. This game was released in 2014, but it's still a great introduction to Microsoft's biggest and most storied franchise. The Master Chief Collection has every Halo game you'd actually want to play. That doesn't include Halo 5 Guardians, but it's fine, you can skip that title. But everything from the very first title to Halo 3 ODST, all the Bungie stuff, and some of the newer games like Reach, they're all in here and it's worth playing. And it's also been upgraded for next-gen hardware. On the Series X, it'll get up to 120 FPS, which means the games will just look very smooth. Honestly, Master Chief has just never looked this good. And I can't recommend Xbox games without diving into the Forza franchise. Both Forza Horizon 4 and Forza Motorsport 7 are in Game Pass right now. These are the latest games. And here's the thing about Forza, it just kind of has something for everyone. Forza Horizon is a series that's all about open world gameplay, cool cars, cool music, and a lot of different tracks and events that you could go into. That's my preferred way to drive on Xbox. But there's also Forza Motorsport, which is the more traditional entry. It's a direct Gran Turismo competitor. And that's a game that's all about cool cars and very realistic looking tracks and driving. You know, you can pick and choose and you can try both. When it comes to open world gaming, I think Forza Horizon, that franchise is just doing really cool things that nobody else is at this point. And as always, car games are just a great way to show off new hardware. Both Forza Horizon 4 and Motorsport 7 look fantastic on the Series X. Next up is Gears 5, and this is a series that's been going on for a while, not as long as Halo, but I still think it's worth playing, and Gears 5 in particular is worth checking out. It is a refined version of the Gears formula, so you're playing big, burly characters with giant guns. You can kill your enemies in a lot of different ways, but this is a franchise that's always been about huge set pieces, and Gears 5 really delivers on that. And on next-gen hardware, on the Series X, it also looks beautiful. It's been refined quite a bit. There's 60 FPS performance. There's ray tracing. On the multiplayer side, you also have 120 FPS performance, which just looks super smooth. When I was playing it, it meant that when I zoomed in with the sniper rifle, aiming up a headshot just seemed a lot easier and a lot smoother. Gears Tactics is another spin on that franchise, and it's a very surprising game because it delivers all the set pieces and action that you expect, except you're doing it through turn-by-turn RPG style. It's very much XCOM meets Gears, but I think it's not nearly as difficult as XCOM, and also if you're a bit of an RPG purist, if you like games like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre, this is pretty much that whole setup except with much better graphics and, you know, beautiful 3D rendering. Next up is Sea of Thieves, which I'll admit is a bit of an acquired taste, but it's a really unique game. It's Rare's Pirate Simulator, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a game where you can sail a ship with your friends and go on adventures, hunt for treasure, fight with other players. You can also do it solo, but I think the real joy of this game is in the gameplay that you get when you team up with your friends, because all of you are controlling a different ship. There is a bit of a learning curve, and that'll probably turn off a lot of casual players. But I think if you spend some time with it, you'll find that Sea of Thieves is just a really interesting game. The cool thing right now is that it's just so unique. So many big budget titles just feel like endless open world games with a ton of objectives and things to do. They all feel like copies of each other. Sea of Thieves stands alone. If you're looking for something a little more adult and gruesome and violent, I'd recommend State of Decay 2. Zombie survival games are pretty much a dime a dozen these days, especially on PC, but I really enjoy the State of Decay franchise, and this sequel builds on everything that the original did well. You play as a survivor in a zombie apocalypse, who has to find people and build up a camp and basically build up a team to survive during the zombie outbreak. It's a game that's all about building out your base, clearing out zombies nearby, and collecting resources. And it's not really a game that you go in for to find a really powerful story or anything, but I do think it is great when it comes to emergent gameplay, because there are going to be situations that this system just builds up where you'll be driving to find supplies and you just run into a horde of zombies or something. I think it's a ton of fun, and it's worth spending some time with. And for something a bit controversial, I'd recommend playing Sunset Overdrive. It was one of the earliest Xbox One titles, but I also think it's a genuinely fun and interesting game from Insomniac. It's pretty much a cross between Jet Set Radio, Prince of Persia, and Insomniac's own Ratchet & Clank series. It's a game where you'll be grinding on pretty much everything you see with futuristic skates. You'll be air dashing. It's all about aerial combat. It's a really fun and dynamic game with an irreverent soundtrack and a ton of cool weapons to play with as well. It has a rocket launcher that shoots teddy bears with dynamite strapped to them, and how can you not find that cool? Now, the great thing about Xbox Game Pass is that Microsoft is always bringing new games to it, and it's also expanding the service. There are EA Play titles coming in. They're going to be acquiring Bethesda soon, so that's going to be a whole slew of new games in as well. So it's worth checking out some of the cross-platform titles that it offers too. Be sure to check out Control, which is the best game of 2019, bar none. There's also Dragon Quest XI's, which is the first time that series has ever been on an Xbox. It's a classic RPG series, but also looks very good, and that's a huge, huge game that you get for nothing as part of the Game Pass subscription. And there's also Nier Automata, which is a genuine cult classic. It's a very anime-like game that kind of crosses so many different genres. I'd recommend treating Game Pass like an all-you-can-eat subscription, and I'm sure you'll end up finding a few gems. Stay tuned to Engadget.com for more of our game suggestions and reviews and news and everything. If you dug this video, be sure to like and subscribe.